Welcome on into the Wolverine.com podcast. Clayton Safey here with Anthony Broom and Chris Ballas on Thursday, November 7th. If you're watching on YouTube, make sure to throw us a like, subscribe to the channel, leave a comment. We're going to preview Michigan against Indiana. Leave your final score prediction. We'll get to ours here in several minutes here on the show. And head to the Wolverine.com as always for all of your Michigan football, basketball, and recruiting news. You can use the promo code UM1. That's UM in the numeral 1 for a special offer, 2 months of premium access for just $1. So transfer portal's heating up next month. You still got 3 more games this season that you can join the coverage over at thewolverine.com with. So head to thewolverine.com, use the promo code UM1. We'll talk a little basketball, but we will start with football and Michigan against Indiana. Michigan has just dominated the history of this series against the Hoosiers, 62-10. They've won 42 of the last 44. The 2 in that span that Indiana was able to grab came in 1987 and 2020, if that one counts, with Michael Penix. But Indiana's favored over Michigan this year by 2 touchdowns. First time they're favored to beat Michigan since 1968. Wolverines won that meeting in the last year under Bump Elliott, but that was 53 years ago, 45 Michigan versus Indiana games ago. Indiana comes in 9-0. They're winning by an average of 32.8 points per game. They've covered the spread in 8 straight games. It's the longest streak for a team to cover the spread and win 8 straight games, tied this century with 2002 Notre Dame and 2019 Ohio State. Kirk Cignetti has this thing rolling here in his first year, bringing in a bunch of transfers, 14 of them from JMU, where he was at last season, and they're having a great year.
They are, and kudos to him. And Coach Google Me is doing some good things there. It begs the question: where will he be coaching next year, or the following year? And I hate to say it, Indiana fans are going to get pissed off about it, but Indiana's not exactly a destination job, right? And so it's going to be tough for him to sustain that success there. But he certainly has caught lightning in a bottle in Bloomington this year, and all these basketball fans all of a sudden saying, "What's this football game I'm hearing about over there at that big place where they play?" So, going to be fascinating to see what happens on Saturday, which Michigan team shows up. I don't have a great feeling. I don't think any of us do. We have our staff picks up, and we'll talk about our picks here. But this is a good, well coached, fundamentally sound football team, and this guy gets the best out of his talent. So I don't think we can say that right now about this Michigan team, and that's what concerns me. You're going on the road. Usually that place is half Michigan fans, right? It won't be the case this year. It'll probably only be about a quarter or less. The Michigan fans are probably going to put their tickets up. But if you told me before the season that this was going to be one of those games that's going to be in doubt even for Michigan, I'd have said Michigan's in trouble, and that's exactly where we are. But kudos to Indiana. They've got a very good football team.
Yeah, I think the thing you can say the most about it is that even if Michigan was a little bit better, all things still being equal, this would still be an uphill battle because this is, a top 10 team right now. Kurt Cignetti has done somehow everything that he was laughed at for saying he could do right off the bat. They're good on both sides of the ball. Unflappable. There's we love this word around here. There's a grit to them. And if they have the chance, they are going to, I don't know if I'd say run up the score, but they're going to put, have their foot on the gas from start to finish. So we know Michigan has struggled starting out fast in any of their games. I guess you credit them a little bit last week for hanging tough in the second half with Oregon. But, this obviously not Texas. It's not Oregon, but it's the next best team that they've seen this year. And Michigan hasn't really played either of those two teams particularly close. So it's a challenge. You're going on the road. Your issues being what they are. We'll see what happens. It's what the entire dynamic of this series being flipped on its head in a little over a year is just not only has Michigan's drop off been kind of this whiplash breakneck thing that's happened. It's what Indiana's done and what they've become in 1 year is pretty remarkable. And maybe, if you want a silver lining here, it shows how fast you can turn things around in today's college football, if you're looking ahead to 2025. So, but got to hang in this one Saturday and see what happens.
Yeah, Indiana fans not necessarily happy about their standing in the first version of the college football playoff rankings. Not that it matters, sitting at number 8. They've played the 103rd toughest schedule in the country. They haven't really played anybody. This will be their toughest test here coming in. Their opponents have combined for a 34-45 record. Only 2 of them have 5 or more wins on the year, and they're both right at 5. Washington and Nebraska. Michigan sitting at 5 coming into this one, but more talent than anyone they've faced. Chris and I will be at the game on Saturday. CB, how do you rate this trip? I've been there once. I liked the tailgating scene outside of the stadium. We didn't tailgate, but just walking through it, you could feel that type of atmosphere. And this was when they were no good in 2022. It was early in the year, so they still had a little buzz. Michigan was coming to town. The stadium's okay, kind of a weird setup, like no stands in one of the end zones. But what are your thoughts on the trip and the stadium and everything?
It's like a big high school stadium, honestly.
Yeah.
But I bet there are some in Texas, some high school stadiums in Texas that rival it. With all due respect,
Probably,
I say that with all due respect. But it's fun because first, as I wrote today, first of all, you go down there and your expectation is you're going to win. So you're going to have a fun trip and you're just going to win the football game and have some fun with your friends, and your Indiana Hoosier friends don't care if they win or lose. You know, that's not the case anymore. So it's a great town, a great college town. Been there for a basketball game when Trey Burke was playing, and that place is amazing. So Assembly Hall, but football, there won't be as many Michigan fans there this year. I think that's the first place I went as a staffer of the Wolverine. John Borton and I went down there and we had a blast. So it'll always have a special place in my heart, but it's going to be different this year. I think it's going to be louder. I think there are going to be a lot of fans getting ready to rush the field and tear down the goalposts. And as we said in staff picks, they use the uprights to make basketball poles or something, but they'll probably be going down the street with the goalposts and rush the field because it's Michigan, even though they're the better football team this year. So this is it's a fun trip though. Love it down there. Love the scene. Love the campus, and it should be fun. Other than maybe what happens on Saturday if you're a Michigan fan.
Yeah, it will be interesting. It is a sold out crowd, so and I would imagine lots and lots of Indiana fans have been waiting for this one because again they're 9-0 and there's been a lot of excitement there. But this is Michigan coming there. This is again the toughest team they will have played, the biggest brand they will have played. Of course, they go to Columbus in a couple of weeks. That'll be a big game, but this is maybe the biggest home game of the year for them. So, we'll take it all in. Let's get into the game and break it down. But before we do, we got to talk about our friends over at Prizepicks, daily fantasy sports. It is the most fun way to enjoy watching sports. You can win up to 100 times your money this football season. You just select 2 or more players, pick more or less on their projected stats, and place your entry. It's a great way to test your skills as a fan. It's simple and easy to play. You can make your picks and submit them in less than 20 seconds. Again, it's kind of competition against yourself. Can you get these right? I'll be checking them out on Saturday, as I always do, placing my picks before college football gets underway. And we have a special offer for you. Go to prizepicks.com or the Prizepicks app. Use the code Wolverine to receive a guaranteed $50 once you play $5 in lineups. The guaranteed $50, whether you win or lose, is there as long as you use the code Wolverine and play $5 in lineups. Prizepicks, daily fantasy sports made easy. Again, the code Wolverine for $50 instantly when you play $5. Let's talk about the Michigan offense to start. Davis Warren making his first start on the road in his career, 6th overall against an Indiana defense. Again, I mean, it's both sides of the football, but you look around and you see some transfers from JMU really all over the field. Their secondary 2 transfers from a different Sun Belt school, Old Dominion, kind of similar to when Dusty May brought in Reuben Jones, right? He competed against him in their old conference, and Kurt Signetti says, hey, I want these guys to come with me. And man, they play pretty good defense, especially that front 7. So it should be a challenge for Michigan.
Really good tacklers. I've watched them in just about every game this year, and you don't see a lot of guys on offense even as good as they are at times, juking somebody and breaking a tackle. These guys are in great position. They square up. They make plays, unlike Michigan's defense, which has had a lot of missed tackles. Other than, Wink Martindale didn't necessarily agree when our buddy Isaiah Hole asked him about that, missing tackles all year. And they were better, right? Last game, I think there were 5, Clay, if I'm not mistaken, compared to the 18 the previous game against Michigan State. I still don't know how they won the Michigan State game, to be honest with you. But you know what? You gotta give them credit the way they play together, and they don't have the 5 stars, they don't have the 4 stars, but they play great as a unit. Reminds me of the 1985 Michigan team, showing my age here, that really played well together. They didn't have a whole lot of elite talent. They had some undersized guys, they had slower linebackers, but everybody was so fundamentally sound, and that group played so well together that it was really hard to score on them. And that's what reminds this Indiana defense reminds me of. Plus, they got some good defensive linemen too, and that's key. They got a couple guys in there that are going to make life really hard on Michigan's offensive line on Saturday.
It's tough to, kind of crazy to say, but for as good as this Indiana team has been, no one's really tested them yet. I mean, and that's a credit to how well they've played. They've blown out just about everybody. In terms of common opponents, 47-10 last week at Michigan State. Another example of the Michigan State Spartans having the Michigan loss turn into 2 losses. That seems like a trend with them. I have nothing to back that up. Just wanted to twist the knife a little bit. Washington 31-17. That was the closest game they've played to this point this season. Of course, Curtis Rourke was out. That won't be the case in this game Saturday. So I'm really fascinated to see, again, I think that not that last week was, I liked the energy in the second half last week. I don't know that they were put in positions to succeed. But I think this Michigan, Michigan's best game, I think, is good enough to maybe go down there and compete and heck, maybe even win a football game. But this is a contrast of teams in that Indiana does not beat itself, and Cignetti kind of is a steadying hand. Whereas Sharon, I think, has the guys playing hard, but they make too many self-inflicted mistakes on their own. And I don't think the coaches always do put them in positions to succeed. So I'll just say this. I think the more poised team will win this game on Saturday. But we have 9 games of information to kind of tell us who that is right now, and it's not Michigan.
Yes, Indiana defense, you kind of have to adjust for the level of competition because they haven't had a tough schedule. But the stats are incredible. Of course, they can be misleading, but only allowing 13.7 points a game. Second in the Big Ten. It is 7th in the country. Only Big Ten team with a better mark is Ohio State at 12 points per game. And they had a pretty light schedule to begin the year as well. But the front 7 seems to be the strength of this Indiana defense, which is a little bit concerning considering that Michigan's offensive line has struggled to block in the run game. Lately, they've protected a little bit better. But this Indiana defense gets pressure on 34.9% of passing plays. That's 19th in the country. They've got 31 sacks. That's 4th in the country. 7 players with 10 or more pressures. They have the man with more pressures than anyone else in the country, Mikael Kamara. He's got 45, a JMU transfer who's 6'1", 265. Doesn't look like your typical edge rusher, but it just seems to always be in the backfield. Watching that Michigan State game, he showed up, flashed time and time again. They've had created quite a few turnovers this year. I think for Michigan, it's are you going to allow teams to just sell out and stop the run like you have the last couple of weeks? And are you going to be able to make them pay for trying to do that? Are you going to just kind of run it or try some of those end arounds on first down, or are you going to go play action and maybe get a little bit more aggressive? Because it's like, in one respect, there were too many TFLs on first down last week, but and so maybe you say, okay, just get positive yardage. Maybe you ram Kalel Mullings up the middle. But if they're selling out to stop that and it doesn't work, then what's the difference between that and an incomplete pass? I would try to mix it up a little bit more on the early down so you're not facing these 3rd and longs. But that's something I think they need to be able to do is mix it up, get some more play action involved in this game.
Yeah, and I wrote that in Keys to the Game, which will be going up here in about an hour, that you can't be as predictable, you can't be as easy to defend. And Scott Bell, our friend on Twitter, who lives down in Dallas, said, had a stat. I think they ran 16 straight times after an incomplete pass or something like that. They had some success on them, but you can't be that predictable. And we'll have some stuff inside the Fort on Friday too about some disturbing things that we heard from the Oregon game about tendencies. And that's going to be it's going to be a key going forward here. You can't be so predictable. You are not blowing people off the ball. You can't smash if everybody knows it's coming and you're not very good at blocking it. So for B, so to me, I would agree with you completely. I'd feel better if they had more options, right, at receiver to do more things, but they don't. But you've got to do some better things to scheme guys open, and there needs to be some better coaching in terms of guys being where they're supposed to be and things clicking in the passing game and protection up front. So we'll see if it all comes together Saturday. My guess is it probably won't. You kind of are what your record says you are at this point, to quote my friend Anthony Broom. So we will, we'll hope for the best, but not expecting Michigan to move the ball very well against these guys.
Yeah, they need to do a better job of blocking, running, and receiving. And coaching.
Other than that,
is there anything else?
Other than that, I can't. You know what? They're doing great.
Yeah, I'm not confident that these things come together this week. I mean, if you're telling me that the games are flipped and you're coming off the win against Michigan State, that's one thing. But I just, at this point, it's just 9 games of bad film where there is no feel for play calling. There is no, I don't know, there's any conviction in what any of these guys are good at and building around that. So to me, it's I'd be fairly surprised if this was the week that they figured it out. I don't know if there are any weeks moving forward where it will get figured out. And I hate to be the pessimist here, but I think it's more being a realist at this point.
Running, blocking, running routes, receiving. It's funny that passing isn't in that category right now because Davis Warren's been pretty good and he's taking care of the ball. 2 straight games with no turnovers for Michigan. They have to keep that going on the road. You don't win road games, by turning the football over. Probably win the turnover margin, as we say every week, is a big goal in this game because you give yourself a chance, right? If you create some havoc on the other end, which we'll talk about right now as we shift into the defense, then maybe you put the offense in some good spots. We saw, their only first half touchdown last week against Oregon came off of a short field after the Joe Taylor forced fumble on the punt return. But Michigan might be healthier defensively in this game. Jair Hill trending toward probably playing. Were Sharon Moore's words about him. He said, we'll see on Will Johnson. That was kind of the line he gave last week. And Will Johnson did not dress, of course, still recovering from his injuries. But Indiana offensively averaging 46.6 points a game. Pretty ridiculous. Again, you have to adjust a little bit for the competition. We'll see how they finish this month. It's probably most importantly in terms of telling the story on what exactly this offense is. But Curtis Rourke, the transfer from Ohio at quarterback, has been maybe the revelation of the college football season, the surprise of the college football season. He was the MAC Offensive Player of the Year in 2022, second team All-MAC last year, comes to Indiana and raises his level of play with some receivers from James Madison, some offensive linemen from James Madison, some guys who came back for Indiana. He's completed 73.3% of his passes, 2,200 yards, 19 touchdowns, 3 picks. Looked really good last week at Michigan State, about a week after receiving, or maybe a week and a half after getting surgery on his thumb. So he looks good to go, and this is a good team with some weapons that you don't usually see Indiana have, which is something that's really helped this year. He's got guys around him.
And some RPOs they run, and I mean they're gonna make life miserable. I think for this Michigan linebacker core, number one, they're gonna have to tackle a lot better. Ernest Hausman's had his ups and downs. Same with Jay Sean Barham. They've both played better, but this is going to be a huge test for them. And to me, I don't think they're going to throw all over them. I think Michigan's defensive line can do some things, but this offensive line is stout. These guys play so well together. They pick up stunts and twists and everything together. And I just like the way they play. I hate to say it, but I'm a little envious as even as a Michigan guy of the way these guys play together. This is kind of reminiscent of what we've seen with Michigan football the last 3 years. And I'm not saying they're as good as Michigan and not going to win a national championship, most likely, but they could very well make the playoff. And they're going to be a tough out even when they go to Columbus. Mark my words. I will say that right now. Indiana is going to give Ohio State a tough game down there in Columbus. So, but yeah, it's going to be they aren't going to be giving up the big plays in my opinion, but you're going to have more of the same where teams right? Drive right down the field on them. You're going to have to hold them to some field goals. Third down defense is going to be big in this game. I'm sorry, red zone defense. Third down, obviously, because that's one of the huge disadvantages for Michigan against this Indiana team. I think they're 7th. Michigan is 110th in third down defense. And something sounds spooky there. And then, and then red zone defense. I got to keep them out of the end zone.
Yeah, I think a big key too is obviously pressure. As Clayton noted in his opponent preview that he does a tremendous job with each week. Curtis Rourke has only been under pressure for 20% of his dropbacks this year. Michigan's going to want to crank that up a little bit, see if they can't get him to make a mistake. He's only thrown 3 interceptions. This feels like one of those games where, Oregon, it was a lot of explosives. I feel like this is like this has a chance to kind of be one of those like death by 1,000 paper cut games where, you're in a 3rd and 6 and they pick it up and, they go on a 10, 11 play drive because it just doesn't seem like, when these opposing offenses get rolling, Michigan's able to kind of get off the field quickly. Now, when they stopped Oregon last week, you just kind of force a couple 3 and outs and you're off the field and bada bing, your offense has a chance to do something. And they didn't oblige there. But, it all comes down to complementary football. Get yourself in those short fields, make them drive the field. Unfortunately, I just feel like they're going to kind of they're aggressive, but I feel like they're going to be patient too. I don't see Indiana getting frustrated with some of the things that Wink Martindale is going to throw at them. So be nice to have reinforcements back in the secondary, at least one in Jair Hill, if he's able to go. But yeah, something else I'd be interested in finding out, if they do, I think we all probably expect them to lose this game, but it seems like every game that they've lost this year or will have a chance to lose, the quarterback they're going up against has started like at least 35 games in his career. I think last week, Dylan Gabriel, it was like his 53rd career start or something like that. Kind of getting got by these veteran quarterbacks who have seen a little bit of everything. So we'll see. It's going to be tough. It's just a group that does everything well. They even protect fairly well. And, they have a guy that puts them in position to succeed. So it's going to be a challenge for them. I just see a much more poised offense than the defense it'll be going up against.
The experience for Curtis Rourke stands out. Like that's what experience gives you, is the way he's playing this year. This will be his 42nd career start. 33 of them coming at Ohio, 8 this season. Of course, missed the 1 game. But when people use the cliche, the game's slowing down for him, and the game has slowed down. When you watch him play, it's like you're watching it in slow motion because he makes such good decisions. Chris, you mentioned the RPOs that they run quite a bit of. He's just so decisive, but it's not like he rushes anything. He's kind of methodical and just accurate. And even when he's rolling out, he's not fast, but he just kind of keeps his eyes downfield. Makes an accurate throw. If a guy's scrambling, he throws it to the right side of the guy's body. That, one beautiful touchdown on an example of that last week against Michigan State. They run a lot of RPOs, as we mentioned. They're 15th nationally with 10.9 yards per attempt on RPO passes. They average 5.8 yards per rush on RPO runs. That's 43rd in the country. And as you mentioned, Chris, the linebacker coverage is going to be huge. Or do you blitz them, right? Because then he could just pull the ball out and throw it right down the middle. And 106 of his 154 completions, that's 68.8%, have been thrown to the middle third of the field. So it's going to be the safeties, the linebackers. And when you think about the defensive line trying to control this game and take over, it's harder to do when you don't know exactly what's coming, run or pass. So you can't pin your ears back necessarily. There will be some downs to do that, but they keep you on your toes. And of course, you can't run the most complex plays in the world out of those sets either. So it's give and take, right? If you're Indiana running those, but I just thought that was kind of interesting. Anything else on this Michigan defense that really has to keep them in the game, right? They can't allow you probably got to win this game. You got to hold them to like 21 or less, maybe 24 at the most, and that maybe that means you even get the ball out a couple times to help the offense.
Yeah, tackling, right?
Yeah.
Get him down and get him on the field. To me, that's going to be one of the keys to this game, as it always is. But more against Oregon than Michigan State. You can't have the 10, 12 missed tackles in this game. They got to get him down on the ground.
Yeah, nothing really further to add there. You hope for the best because there's a lot of talent on that Michigan defense. And if they have a good day, this can be a close game. But everything's got to kind of work in unison, and that hasn't happened a whole ton this year.
I'm tired of saying stuff like this, but I mean, does Michigan have what, the 4 most talented players probably on the field in this game? You continue to think that. Like when I mentioned on the podcast after the Illinois game, I was standing there by the tunnel as they walk off the field, and it's like I'm walking by guys like Mason Graham and Kenneth Grant and Will Johnson and Colson Loveland, all these guys, and they play their best, but like there's a lot more talent on the Michigan side. You don't want to lose to some of these teams. I know this is a really experienced team with a bunch of seniors, a bunch of guys that have done it. They play together because a lot of them played together at James Madison, but still, if you're Michigan, I mean, it's one you can get, although it does not look likely. Let's get into our predictions in just a second. But before we do, we got to talk about our friends over at Gametime. They're the exclusive ticketing partner of the Wolverine podcast. It's the easiest way to get tickets to the biggest games, concerts, or shows like Michigan against Indiana. If you're making the trip, you don't have tickets yet, or if you're going to do a last-minute trip here and you're texting a buddy right now saying, hey, should we go down to Bloomington? Well, if you want to get tickets, head to Gametime. You can use the promo code ON3, that's ON, the numeral 3, for $20 off your first purchase. Go to an NFL game, go to a concert. You got NBA up and running. You got Michigan basketball, college hoops underway as well. I know some readers of ours are going to the game in Greensboro on Sunday, Michigan against Wake Forest hoops. So if you don't have your tickets yet, go to Gametime. Use the code ON3 for $20 off your first purchase. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the app, create an account, use the code ON3 for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Download Gametime today. Our predictions will start with the offensive player of the game nod. I think Michigan's got to get the run game going somehow. Maybe that comes if you're a little less predictable with running the ball actually on first down. But I'm going to go with Kalel Mullings. I feel like he's due. He's not trending in the right direction this year, but he needs a turnaround here.
I think I picked Donovan Edwards last week.
I think so.
Yeah, and I think that was pretty close, even though he wasn't great. I'm going to go with Davis Warren this week. I think they're going to turn him loose a little bit. I think he's going to have a good game. I think he's going to protect the ball. And I think he and Colson Loveland are going to do some damage.
Yeah, thanks for leaving me the freebie. I'll take Colson Loveland. Just the, on a team full of inconsistencies, he shows up every single week, and better enjoy him because I think you're probably looking at the last 3 games that you'll have him around.
Yeah, he's a beast.
You don't think he's going to play in the Pinstripe Bowl?
All bets are off when you go to the Duke's Mayo Bowl. So
okay, yeah.
See.
Defensive player of the game, and really, I was torn. I feel like I've taken Colson about 5-6 weeks in a row, so I had to go with the changeup. But defensive player of the game, I'm going to mix it up as well from my usual Mason Graham pick. I'm going to go with his partner in crime, Kenneth Grant. A lot of those passes over the middle. Maybe KG gets the hand up. He's got more pass deflections than any defensive lineman in Michigan history. If he gets a couple, those could be huge in this game.
I'm going to go with Derek Moore. I think Derek Moore got some pressure last week, and Dylan Gabriel got out of there away from him. But I think Derek Moore is going to have himself a game. Just a feeling.
I'll go on the other side. I'll go Josiah Stewart. He's the guy that's kind of pushing the core 4, so to speak, of those first-round picks. Maybe be that 5th guy in that group. And I think he'll have a big day on Saturday.
My X factor is however Makari Page plays. I think he's an important player in this game, whether he's playing the nickel like he did last week or back at safety, his usual position. If Jair Hill comes back, you get to move him back to his traditional position, but he's got to play better. And I think however he plays could help determine, what the defense does, given how important it is to protect the middle of the field there.
I'm going to go with Tyler Morris, and just somebody's got to step up at receiver. He's the most logical. So he's got to have a decent day if Michigan's going to win this football game.
This is a tough one. I'm going to go with Zeke Berry. He's a guy that it's been up and down. He was forced into action last week at cornerback. Like the versatility. I think that he's a guy that is going to be a big piece of this defense probably next year. Certainly a giant piece of it this year too. But I like the things that I've seen from him when he's put it all together.
He fared pretty well in his first time at that position. Okay, let's get to our final score predictions. I can start us off this week. I got Indiana 30, Michigan 24. Like I said, I feel like to win this one, you kind of need to hold them in the low 20s. I think it's going to be tough to do just over the course of a game. This Michigan defense has not played a complete 60-minute game, it feels like, in quite a while. And, Indiana's got a good offense playing at home. So I think they get to 30 and win this one by 6.
I like Indiana 34-17. I don't see how Michigan's going to get to 24 on the road against these guys. But if they do, Clay, it'd be fantastic. But I think Indiana controls this game from start to finish and wins by 17.
Yeah, I'm going 38-21. I do think Michigan will probably hang in there to a certain extent, like it did last week at Oregon. But Indiana gets the late score to kind of put it out of reach for them. And it would be something that I think Clayton and I have only seen twice in our lifetimes, which would be a loss to Indiana, which is kind of crazy to think about.
Same here.
It would be.
I've only seen a loss to Indiana twice in my lifetime. So,
but it would be three. Yeah.
This would be the third. Okay, yeah, there you go. Thanks. So, and 2020 again. 2020 doesn't count. Let's be honest.
So it'd be the second.
Yeah. Yep.
So 1987, it'd be our first.
There you go. Yeah. I'm trying to make myself look better here, so just STFU.
87 was not that long ago. It was long.
It wasn't. That's I was only 2 at the time. So anyway, next.
Right. That's right. Yeah. Let's get to Michigan basketball. Welcome to the Dusty May era. 101-53 against Cleveland State on Monday night. We were all there. Great environment for the crowd that it was, and those crowds will continue to grow, as Dusty May said, but pretty much a near flawless opener. Not every night's going to be like that, but when you shoot 68% from the field, the other team shoots 30, you're running and gunning with 28 fast break points and dunks all over the place, guys having fun, the bench on their feet, the crowd on their feet. It's a lot of fun to watch.
It's great basketball, but what impressed me the most, and I asked Dusty May about this as the first question after the game, was how well they played defensively together. And they were in gaps. They were long. They were serious about it. They were determined to be good at that end of the floor. And want to is such a big part of defense. And we've seen terrible defensive teams under Juwan Howard here who claim to be, Mr. Defense. And this team actually gets it, and they want to do it. Like this team a lot, like Will Cheddar and the way he's playing. Got to give a shout out to my dad. He told me 3 years ago, watch Will Cheddar. He's going to be a player. We're starting to see him come into his own. And this guy is really a leader. As hard as he plays, the way he runs the floor, the way he communicates on defense, I really like him. But I like this team. I like everything about it. They're going to have some ups and downs like every team, but this team's going to compete in the Big Ten. This is an NCAA tournament team, and I think they could make some noise if they continue to gel.
Yeah, the thing with them is that I don't think this is going to be a team where defense is going to be something they hang their hat on, per se. But I like the effort. I like the 1-2. You like just about everything you saw from an energy perspective on both sides of the floor. And I had a friend that texted me during the game. He's like, it looks fun, but what's the deal with all these 3-pointers with 20 seconds left on the shot clock? And my response to that was, you better get used to it, because that's just how they're going to play.
And they're good shots. That's not.
It's not Jet Howard dribbling the ball up the floor and then just letting one launch from 35 feet out. Like, Dusty gets them into good offense. These guys get themselves into good offense. And again, it goes back to a couple weeks ago. We watched them practice. Like, it looked like a team that had played together for 3 years, 2 years, 3 years. It doesn't look like a group that was kind of, I won't even say just thrown together, but again, we know how much work they had to do to fill out this roster. So to me, I was incredibly impressed, as impressed as you can be with the win over Cleveland State. Now they got some I won't even say difficult ones. I think they're good enough to beat just about anyone they play on a given night. But You're going to find out a lot about them on Sunday when they go play at Wake Forest. Big game next Friday night at home against TCU. So we're going to finally get sort of a measuring stick in terms of, what they look like against teams that might be able to hang with them a little more. But through the exhibition games, through the opener Monday, I mean, I think they're way ahead of schedule.
The pace they play at that you mentioned, Anthony, every coach probably in the country comes in and says, we're going to play fast, right? It's just like a defensive coordinator taking over and saying, we're going to be an aggressive defense. Like no one would say, we're not going to be an aggressive defense, but they didn't just say it. They taught it. They preached it. They showed them how to do it. They encouraged it. They celebrated it when it happened during practice. They probably lamented it when it didn't happen. In the summer, some of the players talked about how when they were, running fives, they wouldn't even take the ball out after makes. They would just get it right up the floor because they wanted to get these guys used to that, right? That skip ahead pass. And as Dusty May said, we want to take as many in rhythm threes as possible. Michigan was able to do that. They only made 10. It's a great number, right? It's not a ridiculous number. And they were still able to score 101 points because they pushed the pace. They averaged 12.8 seconds per possession, second fastest right now in the country through 3 nights. But still, that's really, really fast. That's insane. And you saw their style of play on display there. Danny Wolf is a huge part of that when you have a 7-footer that can just grab the rebound and go flying down the floor. Turned it over too many times, but he was really good. Roddy Gale was good. Trey Donaldson was really good too. So tons to like. And Wake Forest on Sunday will be interesting. Wake Forest plays again tonight against North Carolina A&T, so they'll have their second game here. But anything else on hoops before we pick some games for college football?
28 points in transition, I think they had.
Yeah.
And I think they probably would have gone 10 games last year and not had that many points in transition. So I like the way these guys play.
Nothing else to add.
Yep.
28 points in transition was the most Michigan had since the Houston Baptist game in December of 2019. They had 34 in that one, 111 points they put up. But yeah, they averaged 10 transition points a game last year. So you're right. It would maybe 3 games worth, but it's still ridiculous to see that pace on display at Chrysler. And people were loving it. The fans were loving it. So I think they're going to pack that place as the season goes on. Big one next Friday against TCU. Let's get to our final segment. No man knows the future. It's a little bit lighter of a schedule. A lot of teams on their second bye this weekend. Michigan will have their second off weekend next Saturday, but we'll start with Purdue at Ohio State. Ohio State 38-point favorite, over under 53.5. This one noon on Fox. I bet on Purdue a couple weeks ago. Chris, you know this. We were watching the game on the way down to Illinois. I'm not betting on Purdue again. I'm taking Ohio State. I'll give Walty 38 points.
Walty's a terrible coach. I think this will be but I do think that they will. I do think that they will keep it closer than that, just because Ohio State's coming off that tough win at Penn State. There will be a little bit of a letdown. We kind of saw it when they played Nebraska, right after they played Oregon, and I think they had a bye, and there was a little bit of a letdown. So, with all due respect to Nebraska and its fans and our producers, but I do like I do like Purdue to stay within the 38. I think Ohio State will probably rest a bunch of guys too, because Walty's a terrible coach, and they won't have to play them all.
I think that it's going to be ugly. I'll take an alternate spread. I'll say OSU minus 44.5, and they'll cover that.
Wow. All right, you better take that then, because it's a hell of a bet.
You know what? Walty is so bad that could really certainly happen.
It absolutely could.
Yep.
Absolutely. I may take that with Anthony. So there you go. Ohio State, my pick there. But Georgia at Ole Miss is our next game, ranked on ranked. Georgia only a 2.5-point favorite on the road, over under 54.5. Georgia's such a weird team because no one expected them to beat Texas. Then they did that. But Carson Beck is playing terrible. 8 picks the last 3 games. I still, though, do not trust Lane Kiffin in a game like this. Georgia wins and covers the 2.5.
Yep, they're going to win in the trenches, and they're going to win that football game. I agree with you. They're probably going to win by 10 points.
Yeah, I think Georgia rolls, and then we start to see some Ole Miss guys making business decisions.
Alabama at LSU, our next one. Alabama 3-point favorite on the road, over under 58.5. This one 7:30 on ABC. Tough one to pick. It's weird to see this matchup. You got Brian Kelly, Kalen DeBoer now in the Alabama LSU rivalry, but I'm betting on Death Valley that they cover 3 points. They're underdogs and at home, so I guess I'll take them just because Nick Saban's not at Alabama anymore.
I like Alabama. For some reason, I just think they've got a tested, well, not really a tested team, but you got a tested quarterback, and I don't think he's going to be. I don't think he's going to be intimidated by that atmosphere. I think, even though he hasn't played extremely well, I think Alabama's going to go in there and win this game.
I'm going to pick Alabama. Hopefully it's a blowout. So that if Bryce Underwood makes his way down to LSU, he's like, oh, wow, it's, I don't know if this is a place I want to be. So there you go. It's my reasoning this week.
Weirdly, I do think Michigan fans are rooting for Alabama because, yeah, he's taking his official visit to LSU this weekend. So we'll see what comes of that. Michigan's got to survive that thing if they're going to stay in the race for Bryce Underwood. Last game, Washington at Penn State. Penn State 13.5-point favorite. Over-under is 46.5. This one, 8 o'clock. Don't have the network in front of me, but I think NBC.
It's the cock.
It's on Peacock. Okay, there we go.
Right there. It says
it's
the
right
cock
on the screen. Yep. I'm an idiot.
Okay.
Give me Penn State, and I'll tell you why. They have won 27 straight regular season games against teams not named Michigan or Ohio State, dating back to 2021. Coming off those losses to Michigan, Ohio State, they've covered the spread in 5 out of 6 games. So I'm thinking James Franklin is just that coach that can't win those big ones, but gets them to kind of dominate. And the other ones, they're going to come back and kind of make a quote-unquote statement, even though their fans are pissed off.
Penn State's going to win it, but it's only going to be by like 10 points. They won't cover. I think Jed Fish keeps it closer than it probably should be.
I'm going Washington. I do not respect Penn State at all. I think they're one of the most fraudulent name brand programs in college football, and they will show why again this weekend.
On the cock.
Yeah, the nation will be watching.
Tens of people are fired up for it.
Yep.
Exactly. Those are our picks. That's our show for this week. Enjoy the game on Saturday, everybody. Michigan against Indiana. Follow along at thewolverine.com for all of your coverage. Like the video if you're watching on YouTube. Subscribe to our channel as well. Again, the promo code over at thewolverine.com is UM1 for 2 months of premium access for just $1, 50 cents a month. You're going to get transfer portal, end of the season stuff, potential, assistant coaching, hot boards, all of that over at thewolverine.com. Use the promo code UM1, and we will see everyone next time.